Hi, Trinity Baptist Church. Welcome back to the book of Acts. We're going to go on to the next chapter today. The next chapter of Roadmap to Reconciliation. Salter McNeil talks about what happens once a catalytic event gets us off that cycle of isolation and protection and fear and launches us into this cycle of instead reconciliation. What happens first? She says the first thing that happens is this moment of realization. And I think the best example of that, I don't know about the best example about that. I think a good example of that is actually in the next chapter of Acts. The cool thing is Saul, like we were talking about yesterday in Acts 9, is having this catalytic event and meets with Ananias, somebody he would have arrested, but instead he's going to learn from him about Jesus. And then the camera in chapter 10 zips over back to Peter's house, and a totally different story is taking place, and yet this too is a story about reconciliation and how important this became in the early church. So this is Acts 10, 9 through 23. It says, the next day, as they were on their journey and were approaching the city, Peter went up on the housetop about the 6th hour to pray. And he became hungry and wanted something to eat, but while they were preparing it, he fell into a trance and saw the heavens opened and something like a great sheet descending, being let down by its four corners upon the earth. In it were all kinds of animals and reptiles and birds of the air, and there came a voice to him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "By no means, Lord, for I've never eaten anything that's common or unclean." And the voice came to him a second time, "What God has made clean, do not call common." This happened 3 times, and the thing was taken up at once into heaven. Now while Peter was inwardly perplexed as to what the vision that he had seen might mean, behold, the men who were sent by Cornelius, having made inquiry for Simon's house, stood at the gate and called out to ask whether Simon, who was called Peter, was lodging there. And while Peter was pondering the vision, the Spirit said to him, "Behold, 3 men are looking for you. Rise and go down and accompany them without hesitation, for I have sent them." And Peter went down to the men and said, "I am the one you are looking for. What is the reason for your coming?" And they said, "Cornelius, a centurion, an upright and God-fearing man who is well spoken of by the whole Jewish nation, was directed by a holy angel to send for you to come to his house and to hear what you have to say." So he invited them in to be his guests. I know it goes quickly, but what happens in this story is Peter's hungry. They're making something to eat. He's so hungry, he sees a vision, but apparently it's a vision from God, because he sees this vision of all these animals that he's supposed to kill and eat. And of course, as a Jewish man, you're not supposed to just kill animals willy-nilly like this, and some of these animals are not animals that you're supposed to eat. I mean, Leviticus says not to eat them. And yet God says to him, "What God has made clean, do not call common." He doesn't know what this is about. Is this that he's supposed to go downstairs and have a BLT, or what is God telling him to do? But then the Spirit makes it very clear to him, what I'm really telling you, Peter, is what God has made common, do not call unclean. Or what God has made clean, do not call common. That is in regards to food, but even more importantly, it's in regards to people. Like these Gentile people who are walking up to your front door right now. And then, ding dong, and it's a remarkable little sequence that teaches Peter a lot. And again, we're so grateful it does, because it totally changes the church. I don't think I have any Jewish lineage, so I'm thankful that starting with this story, Peter realizes he has this catalytic event, and he has this first moment of realization that maybe he needs to be open to hosting these people even though they're not Jewish. And that's going to lead to this whole process of maybe the church needs to spread the gospel to the nations even though they're not Jewish, which includes people like most of you and me. It's reassuring to me that there is a stage of realization, that a catalytic event gets us, launched into this other cycle of reconciliation, but that we start with realization. Because I think one of the things that can scare us about trying to reconcile with new ideas or people who are new to us or cultures who are new to us or anything like that is that we think, I'm just not ready. What do you expect of me? Ironically, we feel rushed. We don't want to be open to new ideas because we feel rushed to work them into our life. But funnily, what we do instead is we rush to tell people that we don't need that, thank you very much. We've got it figured out, thank you very much. It's reassuring to me that no, a catalytic event can launch us onto a whole path of reconciliation, and we can start with the time we need to realize what we need to realize. Like Peter, to realize what God wants us to realize. We can take time to read, we can take time to ponder, to figure out, okay, I realize something needs to change, but exactly what? What is true? What is good? Yesterday I was talking about catalytic events for me that helped me realize I needed to think more about relationships between Japanese and Korean and Chinese people, between white people and black people in our country. And it's helpful to me that there's a whole stage of realization, because that suggests it's just fine to say something needs to change, but I don't know what. And I can take the time to go and read, go and talk, go and converse, go and ask questions, go and see. And of course, come and see is something God says over and over again throughout the Bible. So, like Peter, the question is, what would God have us realize, especially in regards to the people that he has put around us?